All right, so the next option is debt financing, and debt financing, I think, would be extremely expensive. Interest rates are high. Aptera is super risky. All banks will understand that startups are extremely risky, and their chance of losing all of their loan is extremely high. So they're going to charge very high interest rates because of that risk, and also they're going to demand collateral. And the only real collateral Aptera has is their intellectual property, and they're going to have to decide whether the intellectual property is worth, 10, 20, 50, $100 million. I have no idea how to evaluate the value of intellectual property. My just gut feeling is that their intellectual property, I don't think is worth $100 million. Maybe it is, but I just don't think so. And it actually doesn't matter what I think; it matters what the bank thinks. And we'll find out if that's another option. The last option is an.
So I'll talk about that second one. I'm pretty sure, and once again, like him, I'm no expert on finances, but just let's call it a gut feeling too. A gut feeling that a bank won't use their intellectual property as collateral when Zaptera say they own the intellectual property and a court case is still pending. What bank would go, that's a secure basis for lending money? A court case saying you don't have any intellectual property. Of course, they might count the patents pending that they have, but they look absolutely worthless. I recall one patent pending is that they got the idea of turning a solar cell by 45 degrees. That's about it. What a joke. So, once again, I have a gut feeling any patents pending won't count for $5 worth of intellectual property. They have no real estate property. They have about 8 fake prototypes, which they're likely to crush as soon as they go out of business. That's what they did last time. I'm hoping the authorities confiscate them. But I'll just finish up by saying there are reasons to think that banks won't go near them with a barge pole.
Is the option that they've been courting for a while, which is large investors. And, supposedly there were large investors that were turned down at some point in the past 4 or 5 years because they asked for stipulations that the founders were not comfortable with. I don't know if those stipulations are control, more board membership, or they demanded changes to the product, or they wanted production facilities set up in a certain way. But those were supposedly rejected. Now, I don't know if they think that now, in retrospect, maybe they should not have rejected those offers. But as of yet, they have not been successful in getting a large whale investor or white knight to invest in them. I think it is true, the things that Chris Anthony is saying, that it's a new type of company. They don't know how to evaluate it. They see it as very risky, and they see it as they just can't figure out how to do the risk analysis, the risk benefit analysis on it. I think that's one. And then I think the other thing is that no one else has invested in it. I believe that if one large investor invests in it, like a well-known large investor, then other people will fall in line, because they'll say like, oh, well, that rich guy that I respect, that is smart and knows stuff, invested in Aptera. There must be something to it, though. So I'm going to go in too. Right now, no one has gone in, and they're thinking, well, these other guys that I respect have heard the pitch and they haven't gone in, and so they must know something. Even though I want to go in, they must know something I don't know. So I'm going to hold off on it too. So I think if they get one large investor, that may kind of open the floodgates to other large investors. I'm really hoping that happens at some point, because I think that's sort of the best case scenario. But I don't know how realistic, kind of depending on that, is.
It's very unrealistic because 5 years has gone by and it hasn't happened. Now, we'll discuss the ones that do their due diligence, or as the Yanks say, due diligence. If anybody evaluates the prototypes that Aptera Motors has made, they will walk away from it. 8 very different prototypes is enough to make anybody walk away from it. If they had made no more than 3 prototypes, with the fourth being a real production model, and the 2 increments from the first one were minor changes, slight improvements, that's the sort of pathway to getting investors who look at the product to invest. The pathway that they chose is disastrous. It won't attract investors. But I have an older theory than that. Version 1 of Aptera got big investors. Investors so big that petty cash for a couple of weeks would have paid for everything. But those investors bailed out. And people who do their homework second time round know that. They didn't bail out because it was a great product. They bailed out because the skin cooling didn't work and they saw themselves as being conned by snake oil salesmen who knew they were never going to make it. They were saying skin cooling worked for years and years, and now they've got a radiator in there because they admit skin cooling doesn't work. And we've had a few overheating problems to indicate that. I'll move on.
So those are the 3 options. But I was just very happy to find out that Aptera understands that crowdfunding alone is not going to get them to production. So small investors that are thinking, oh, we just need to get enough more crowdfunding, I think even Aptera understands that that's not a realistic option. So people who are in the crowdfunding campaign, they have to understand crowdfunding alone.
The Amart half-yearly sale has arrived. Save up to 50% off a huge range of furniture.
Very, very unlikely to get them to production. And they are essentially, keeping the company afloat while they await actual production funding. And if that's the case, they should understand what kind of position they're in financially. That's a super high risk proposition. And as I've said multiple times on this channel, I've personally invested in them. It's not a lot, and it's an amount that I'm completely happy with losing. Well, I guess I'm not happy about losing it, but I'm fully expecting to lose it, and I think of it as a donation to a good cause in a way, which obviously is not the way that you should approach an actual investment. So I do not consider my investment in Aptera to be an actual investment. My actual investments are in like the S&P 500 index funds. That's my actual investment. This is basically, you should think of it as play money. If you have play money that you can throw away and you're totally fine if it just burns up, then that's the kind of money that you can invest in startups. If you're thinking this is a great way to make money, there's a 99% chance it's not a great way to make money. 1, there's a high probability of failure for all startups. 2, even if it doesn't fail, who knows if it reaches the valuation that people are currently paying for this, which is about between $10 to $14 a share, depending on what kind of whether you're accredited or non-accredited investor. If they do IPO and there is some liquidity to the stock, we don't know if the stock's going to hit, trade on the market at $10 a share, $14 a share, $30 a share, or $1 a share. You just don't know. So that's another kind of unknown risk of the whole thing. So people should think about that. Anyways, I think we are going to know within this year whether they get the funding to make it to production, and they make it to production. I personally think if they do not produce vehicles by the end of 2026, unless something really changes to change my mind, I think that this experiment is over. So let me know what you guys think. Like, what is your kind of endpoint for them? Is it end of 2026 or end of 2027? Or are you just happy to keep funding it as long as they're taking crowdfunding investment indefinitely, and just you're happy to wait for production indefinitely?
Well, it's very evident that the Cretan now believes that their goose is cooked, just like we naysayers have been saying for years and years. I'm surprised they went this long. I believe Jan Burlinson is responsible for probably a 2-year extension and a lot more spent on the silly trike than they really wanted to spend. But in either case, my prediction of 4 years ago was that they would not produce the silly trike, and I stick by that. There have been a lot of knuckle dragging fanboys that have said I am wrong, and they've also said that certain events along the way have already proven me wrong, and I just laughed at those. Proved that they were dumber than what I first thought about them. But now, all you dopey fanboys, your YouTube hero, Steve the Cretin, has declared he believes the same as I believe in that the silly trike is doomed. He just doesn't believe, like I believe, that it was all intended to happen that way. That's my personal belief, and I may even yet be right. Doesn't matter though, it is what it is. That's all from me. Bye for now. Oh, make sure you watch my other parts to the earlier video and stay safe.